been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. Put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you: sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. On account of these, the wrath of God is coming. In these you too once walked, when you were living in them, but now you must put them all away: anger, wrath, malice, slander, and obscene talk from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices, and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of its creator. Here there is not Greek or Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, for Christ is all and in all. Put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other as the Lord has forgiven you. So you must also forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, for which indeed you are called to one body. And be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. And whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. Wives, submit to your husbands as is fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. Fathers, do not provoke your children, lest they become discouraged. Bondservants, obey in everything those who are your earthly masters, not by way of eye service as people pleasers, but with sincerity of heart, fearing their word. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will seek the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. For the wrongdoer will be paid back the wrong he has done, and there is no partiality. Masters, treat your bondservants justly and fairly, knowing that you also have a master in heaven.
Okay, so there's like a ton of commands in here, and we're not really going to look at the commands very much. We're going to look primarily at why Paul calls people to obey the commands. Because it's like almost, he like gives a command, and then he gives a reason for why. Some reason why they should obey that command. And so we're just going to go verse by verse and just write them up here. I broke it down into like 4 categories. There's probably a lot more you could do. But the first one I have is gospel identity. And I think we'll see it falls into like 3 areas. There's like, you see Paul looking back. He's like, this is who you used to be. This is who you are now, so present. And then this is who you're going to be, future. So there's like a past, a present, and a future gospel identity. Then we're going to see some promises, like, hey, do this because you'll get this reward or something. Then there's judgment, or you could even put fear there. There's like certain times where you're like, do this because, hey, wrath's coming. And then there might be some other categories like, oh, this is pleasing to the Lord, or something like that. So miscellaneous is the last one. So we're just going to go verse by verse. We're going to write these up here. And then my hope is that once we get it all up there, we'll be able to see some patterns. What does Paul really dig into the most? And then hopefully, as a result of this, we'll be able to encourage one another and also ourselves have the right motivations. So I'm going to move this. All right, so let's just start with the first 4 verses. I believe 1 through 4. What kind of motivations do y'all see in there?
Been raised with Christ.
Okay, you've been raised?
Ready.
I'm going to put present. I'm going to put actually, we're not going to do that. We'll just do that. And raised with Christ. Okay? What else?
You died, and your life is hidden with Christ.
Died. Life is hidden with Christ.
Christ is your life.
Okay.
seated next to him at the right hand? Or is that the same as?
Oh, let's see. What is it?
What?
Coming off and raised with Christ.
Seated at the right hand.
So we've been seated with
Raised with
Christ.
Christ. We'll put in seated.
Raised and seated, yeah.
Cool. Okay.
So we're ignoring the commands.
Okay. What do you guys think about the end of 4?
We'll appear with him in glory.
Here's the
You
glory.
will appear with him in glory.
Okay.
Is that a promise?
You think? Yeah. What do you guys think? Identity, promise, both and.
Promise. It's a promise of our
Okay. Yeah, you can't really separate identity and promise in a lot of ways, but we'll appear.
Erase that line in the middle.
Good idea. Okay. Anything else in that first chunk? All right, let's move on to 5 to 11. What do you guys see?
Judgment 6.
Okay.
He says that there's like, on account of evil actions, the wrath of God is coming.
Right. I'm just gonna put wrath of God is coming. Or just wrath is coming. Okay. The way I like the way that Kevin DeYoung refers to this. He calls it the grace of fear. So it's like God sometimes uses fear as a grace in our life to spur on right actions. So, anyways, okay. So wrath is coming, verse 6.
Past identity. Verse 7, in these you once walked.
Yeah. Okay. These you once walked.
Mm-hmm.
And again, past identity in verse 9, you have put off the old self with its practices. And new identity, put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of its creator. If we were to summarize that, you have put on new self in God's image.
Put on a new self. God's image.
I think there's a promise in even like being renewed.
Yeah. So you are being renewed.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Verse 11, I'm not sure where it fits in, but it's like, this is how God sees everybody.
Yeah.
Christ and all, and
Ground is level at the foot of the cross.
yeah.
The great equalizer.
It's a great equalizer.
Let's say that outside.
Maybe miscellaneous.
Yeah. How would you guys phrase that in? We'll put that in the miscellaneous.
The ground is level.
Great equalizer.
Or yeah.
No other identity matters.
I just like how it's framed in that last sentence. Christ is all and in all.
I think that could also go under identity too, right?
Yeah.
Christ is in us, right? Wait, what does it say? Christ is all?
Christ is all and is in all.
All. Cool.
It's the only standard.
Right. All right. Let's keep going. 12 through 17.
I just want to jump just real quick. So
I'll allow it.
verses 6, it lists sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil, desire. Verse 8 lists anger, wrath, malice, slander, obscene talk. Why is verse 9, I'm just curious, why specifically verse 9 is do not lie to one another? Why is that set off on its own? Or is there a significance to that?
Maybe they were trying to hide their crap.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
It's all this
Just like,
stuff.
don't, yeah, like put this stuff off and don't lie about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could also be different punctuation in the original, where it's continued in the list. It's just
Yeah.
translated a little differently.
Yeah.
Silly.
Okay.
So it kind of goes with some of the other things.
Slander, filthy language, lying.
All right, let's go 12 to 17 now. That is interesting.
We God's chosen ones.
Identity.
Gospel identity for sure, and then holy and beloved underneath that.
Sorry.
God's chosen ones. Holy and beloved.
Under miscellaneous. Is that what you said?
Holy and beloved, I think, is a gospel identity
Okay.
because the gospel is what made us holy. Period. Sus. Cringe.
Slap.
Stand.
Okay, on period. Gospel identity forgiven.
And
Called to forgive.
Wait,
Okay.
where does it say forgiven? 13.
As the Lord has forgiven you.
Yes, it's an interesting one, right? He's commanding them to forgive one another, and he specifically says, because you've been forgiven. So, that's cool.
That is cool.
I guess this would fall under miscellaneous. Verse 13, bearing with one another. You're supporting each other and you're fighting the fight with one another.
Is that a command?
You think it's a command or you think it's a motive?
I guess it'd be a command. Yeah. Very motive.
I do think there is an aspect. I mean, I get what you're saying. There's a communal aspect that's part of our identity that I think you see in some of these commands. It's a motive, but okay, somebody's up to say something.
Well, we were called in one body.
Where do you see that at?
Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, 15, to which indeed you were called in one body. Like, why do you let the
There we
peace
go.
of Christ? Because you've been called to be one. And without letting that peace rule in your heart, you ain't about to be one. You need Jesus' peace.
One.
Because people won't bring you peace. They'll be in your agony and pain.
What you said? What you said?
Like you said, girl.
All right, so part of our gospel identity. This is a unique one so far, but I mean, God's chosen ones, and then you were called in one body. So there's part of our gospel identity is that we're not just ourselves. We're part of something bigger.
Yeah, and you can't fully experience who you are outside of community.
That's
You'll
right.
be lacking self-revelation, and then you'll be living out of something you're not.
That's right.
Crazy.
That's cool. I didn't notice that when I was preparing for this. That's pretty awesome.
Verse 14, it says, and all these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. It's kind of a miscellaneous, like it's just kind of a truth that.
I was trying to decide if that should be a promise.
Yeah, maybe it is a promise that like love is the thing that binds all these commands together in unity. It binds the church together in unity.
So love binds the church together.
Is that a promise? Is that just kind of a reality about the commands?
I think it's a promise. That's how I see it. It's like, why do you want me to put on love? Because it's gonna make it all squish together.
Yeah.
All the good stuff.
All that.
That's the promise and reality. Those two things are the same.
It's like
What is it? Love binds everything.
love is the butter. You know, everything else is like the stuff.
Love, or if it's gluten-free
Butter
baking,
on.
love is the zinc gum.
Love is the olive oil.
Maltodextrin.
Lubricating all that stuff, getting it all.
There is like a translation of the Bible where like bread is not the, and it's for a certain like tribe, like bread is not their like main sustenance. It's sweet potatoes. So they literally translate it as like Jesus is a sweet potato.
Stop,
It's a real
bro.
thing.
I love it.
That's so cute.
That's funny.
Love is a sweet. I'm gonna get a T-shirt that says that.
Jesus is the sweet potato.
Jesus is sweet potatoes of life.
You guys have homework, Lindsay. You gotta find where that is.
I am the sweet potato of life.
I know there's a Native American translation that has some like funny mixed things
Okay.
like that.
Alright, submit to your husband
Mexican.
as
Wait,
is fitting
hold on.
in the Lord.
Did we finish 12 through 17?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. 15.
We definitely did.
And whatever you do, do it all in the name of the Lord. That's a command. Giving thanks, that's a command. Let the message dwell with you. Command.
Okay.
Singing to God is a command. Yeah, and just like, amen.
All right, 18 through. We'll just finish out through 4:1.
So, I think, yeah, like the motivation for wives to submit to their husbands is because it's fitting in the Lord. I'd like to break that down for a minute. I don't really like how simple that is. Fitting.
It's fitting.
Almost every ERV says this is the right thing to do in following the Lord. Amplified says, as is proper as in fitting in the Lord.
I would say
It's fitting because it's a part of your identity.
it's fitting too because, like, it's all about trust. You submit to that person because you were actually submitting to God. That one confuses me.
I put this under miscellaneous personally, but what was some of the other translations you said? As is proper.
As is proper in the Lord. The right thing to do in following the Lord. And it's if you put like share the gospel as is fitting in the Lord. That makes no sense. It's just like there's this kind of natural overflow of gospel. There's like the cycle, right? New creature, gospel sharing. So what does that look like in submitting to your husband?
But I look at this, it doesn't even give any motivation for the husbands. I think God's gracious. Yeah, I think God's gracious to even give women, like, yeah, because it fits. That's all you need to know. You know what I mean? It fits you.
You submit to me.
It makes you
submit to
look
your
good.
husband.
Yeah, let's say that. It makes women look good.
I like that. Yeah,
I think it makes men look good.
it does. It's both.
Kind of the natural order. If you think of marriage as truly being a symbol, of the gospel, that God and the church, husband and the bride, it is fitting that wives would submit to their husband. It's just a natural order.
So I guess it would be gospel identity, and it'd be like marriage is an expression of Christ and the church.
So nailed it.
All right, so we should put it's fitting.
We had to dig, but then we got there.
Fitting in the Lord. So because you're in the Lord, it's fitting. I'm glad we worked on that one. All right, let's keep going. Husbands are exempt from needing motivation.
Y'all don't need no motivations. You're never harsh.
That's right.
You always love your wife.
I think gospel. Yeah.
Okay.
I think gospel identity, like, children are able to bring pleasure to the Lord. That might be miscellaneous. Or like pleasure givers to Jesus.
Oh,
Yeah.
for pleases the Lord.
I would put this one in miscellaneous.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
the motivation here is not necessarily because they're in the Lord, but it's not necessarily their identity. I think it's they can actually just do stuff that's pleasing.
Yeah.
Like I want to do something just to please Him, not necessarily because it's part of my identity.
Sure.
Let's do it. I just think it's so cool we can please the Lord.
Amen. Me too.
Yeah. What does it say? Pleasing to the Lord?
Obedience pleases the Lord.
But it pleases the Lord. It's like, you ever imagine what the Lord being pleased looks like in heaven? It's just like, I'm pleased with that.
All right.
Okay. Do not embitter your children or they will become discouraged. Is that a motive? Again, it's like a rule of the command. If you
I think it's fear.
judgment, your children will be discouraged and say you're living on fire.
And like, yeah, you'll feel really bad about it, and like it could like jack them up forever. Discouragement is the root to many.
I think Shepherd discouraged.
Yeah. Got to deal with that. It become a root in your life, buddy. Promise, verse 23. Well, 24 technically. You know. He doesn't just say you will. He says you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward.
Okay.
Yummy.
Wills.
Cash monies. Tori, why don't you get that last promise?
Hang on, I think we missed one.
Yeah, we probably did.
Verse 22.
22, 23.
Very end, he says, fearing the Lord.
Yeah.
You cool with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that last one, Tori Beth? 25. What's the promise there?
25. For the wrongdoer will be paid back. Amen. For the wrongdoer will be paid back the wrong he has done, and there is no partiality.
Amen.
Ooh.
That's like,
You
God's not like, hey, this is like my cousin's brother, like, he'll get less trouble. I go golfing with his dad, so it's cool. It's cool. No favoritism.
All right. Is there a 1 and 4 1? I can't remember.
I was going to say, I think for one could also be a judgment, knowing you also have a master in heaven.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a question. Oh, so you can write that one down.
Okay. And I'll also put that one in miscellaneous too, because I think it's similar to pleasing the Lord, right? They can, they have a master in heaven that they can either please or they can also they can
It
really
could
screw
be
it up.
both, yeah.
What was it? What did it say? You have a master in heaven.
Yes.
You have a master in heaven. That could also be an identity thing, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Belong to
we've got
someone.
this master who is like in the highest realm.
Yeah. That's right. That's what I love about the Indians. They would always pray in India, master. That's how they would start their prayer. Not all of them, but some of them.
Let's start doing that.
Master Jesus. Oh, Master Jesus.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, verse 2, it said, slaves, obey your earthly masters. Bondservants, obey in everything those who are your earthly masters, not by way of eye service as people pleasers, but with sincerity of heart, fearing the Lord. Why would we put fearing the Lord in judgment?
So you're saying that's just part of the command?
Yeah, and I guess I'm like, is it meant to be a judgment? Like, if you don't obey this command, like,
yeah.
I guess is fearing the Lord a judgment, or is it kind of a...
Sorry, I meant to put judgment / fear, but
Sure.
where would you put it?
I guess when I think of fearing the Lord, I don't think of like being afraid. It's more like a sober-mindedness, an awareness of who God is.
Yeah.
Maybe that's scary.
So when I mean judgment, I don't mean necessarily negative judgment.
Sure.
I just mean that there's a judgment day coming where we'll answer to God positively or negatively.
Got it.
Yeah, because you're right. Fearing the Lord is not a negative thing or like a.
Yeah. In this
Not a
context,
bad
it seems like it's trusting His sovereignty. Like,
Yeah, it's like a I think it's like a furthering of the command.
Yeah, exactly.
You're doing it with sincerity, with fear.
because the temptation, I think, as a slave sometimes is to buck back, or like,
Nobody's watching me. I can do whatever. I
yeah,
want.
like and especially after being mistreated, you're like, I'm about to blow you up. And the Lord's like, fear me more than you are bothered by their mistreatment.
Yeah.
Like, I will take care of you. So I think it's like both a reverence and a fear. Like, I could mess this up if I don't let him take care of it.
We want to move this or what?
I think we just need to.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay.
This was fun.
Yeah. I think it would be helpful to go through here and label these past, present, or future and not worry about it.
Would you like to do that, Chris?
I don't know.
You want to play rock, paper, scissors?
I'd like to hear them all. if you just
I'll
wanna
play.
say them.
Ready? Rock, paper, scissors.
You just shoot or no shoot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Men always pick scissors, so always pick rock, no matter what. If you're playing a woman, then
What
you
kind
pick
of
scissors.
psychology-
Now you got a decision to make.
What
Tori.
kind of psychology?
I think we should do it.
Okay, great. All right, been raised with Christ and seated. That's past and present.
Yeah.
It's both.
Been raised and seated.
It's past, present, and future.
Transcends all.
It's future too.
Being seated in the heavenlies with Christ Jesus.
Or is seated.
Already not
But we
yet.
are seated. Like
That's
we
what
have.
it says. Seated is in the past tense.
Yeah, like we have authority, like the same authority to go before the Father as Jesus. But I do think that there is, like, in being raised, like a reference to like it hasn't happened yet, but it has.
Already, but not yet.
Yeah, already, but not yet.
So we just look at the grammar really as
Maybe this isn't that helpful actually.
I like the idea of it.
It seemed to clean, like more clear cut in my head. Okay, I'm just gonna read the gospel
Perfect.
identity ones. Okay, actually, I'm just gonna read all of them. Okay, so gospel identity. We've been raised with Christ and seated. We've died. Our life is hidden with Christ. Christ is your life. In these things you once walked. You have put off the old self. You have put on the new self in God's image. Christ is all and in all. We are God's chosen ones. We're holy and beloved. We are forgiven, or we have been forgiven. We were all called in one body. We're in the Lord. That's fitting. We all have a master who is in heaven. Okay, for the promises. Would somebody else read the promises?
We will appear with Jesus in glory. We are being renewed. Love is binding everything together in perfect unity. Harmony. What did I say? Unity. Harmony. And we will receive a reward. We will receive an inheritance as a reward.
Sorry about that.
Judgment. Wrath is not only coming on. Yeah, wrath is coming. Children may become discouraged. Fearing the Lord. Important. Wrongdoers will be paid back. Who,
Without
partiality, you have a master in heaven.
Ground is level. We can please the Lord. Okay, so what do you guys notice, or what do you guys think about this?
Me and Lindsay and Philip were talking about it last week, that there's just like the Bible puts these like golden letters over our lives, but really our life is like a bloody field. You know what I mean? It's like chaos, blood, darkness, death, but over it it's like you're God's chosen one. You know, you are holy and beloved. And it's like at some point you have to believe that the golden letters are more real than all the blood, you know.
Yeah.
Even though all you see is the blood and it doesn't feel golden, you just have to like put your hope in those words.
Yeah.
Because they're like coming down. The golden words are like coming down. And one day they'll be like totally there.
Yeah.
What an analogy.
I loved it.
I mean,
That's
serious.
really good,
That
yeah.
was-
No, because like if
That's
I'm
really
having
good.
a bad day at work, I will like say this stuff over me. I'm like, I have an inheritance. I am seated in the heavens with Jesus in the heavenly realms. And like sometimes I'm like, do I really believe this? And then once I I'm scared to get on the elevators at work. Once I say that, I literally get on there and feel so much better. So it's like obviously my body and my spirit is believing it. It's just my head gets in the way sometimes. You know?
Yeah, I told Kiki because she when you read Life Hidden with Christ, and that was my favorite one because for me, in addition to what she said, I have found that when I can identify like the will of Jesus for me in a location or with a person, and when I can obey, when I can do that, like when I can live out like what He is actually wanting through my life, I experience my identity. Like I experience life. You know, what does that word mean? Like you go to a concert, you're drinking, you walk away, you're kind of like, that was good, but like missing something. It never like hits the spot, you know? And I think there's moments in our life when we identify the will of God and we like pinpoint it, and there is a life, there is a substance in that moment that your soul, that your body experience that cannot be found anywhere else. And I think simultaneously, when you try to live outside of Christ, even as a Christian, and like seek your own pleasure, like you're not able to feel what you want to feel, because your life is only able to be experienced when you're letting Jesus live through you at this point, when you're born again, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I like the you died. Sometimes, like, I really.
God, don't you remember you died?
I have a hard time reconciling my two different lives sometimes, like my post 21-year-old life to my like childhood, teenage years, and early adult life. And it's like I died. That can be the simple explanation for what happened in between.
Yeah.
You know, there was a death.
Yeah. And sometimes we need to be reminded that we died.
Yeah.
Which is kind of ironic.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a picture of that.
I think what I was blown away by was, or I'll share some things that stuck out to me, is just how much Paul drills into identity and how much he's like encouraging believers to live out of that identity, whether it's their past identity, their current identity, or their coming one. And so much of how we live the Christian life is tied up into how we understand our identity in Christ. And also that he goes to that way more than other things. Like I think for me, I'm like always trying to go to like judgment type stuff to like spur on motivation, or just future oriented stuff. Like, man, one day we're going to see Jesus face to face and we're going to receive an inheritance for this. But it's like I don't often look back a lot. But then also I think another thing is that Paul doesn't just do gospel identity; he does do the other stuff. And so I think sometimes we need different motivations. Like right now, Philip might need to hear that he's seated with Christ in heavenly places. Austin might need to hear that, bro, the wrath of God's coming. Like you need to chill out. But then Jill might need like a really sweet promise for her to cling to, you know. And so I think we all need different motivations in different seasons of life to cling to.
I was gonna say, I think it changes on what season you're in.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also as believers, when we're encouraging our brothers and our sisters, like we need to have some discernment or just ask the Lord for discernment. What's the proper motivation that I can go to for this? Maybe it's multiple. Maybe it's like I need to remind you of your identity, but then I also need to offer some promises or something.
Or just wrath is coming.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Because I think it's amazing. Like Paul doesn't shy away from giving commands, and I mean, even some of these commands are hard to obey, right? Like he just dives straight into this is what the wife should do, this is what the husband should do, this is what the slave should do. But he also gives the motivations for why. And so I just think it's amazing how it all goes together. So.
We didn't get to do it last week, but I was going to do 1 Corinthians 6, and it's pretty similar because it's actually an interesting passage because Paul's like, flee from sexual immorality. And he could say, for the wrath of God. He could say, give all these reasons, but he says, because your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. And it says, you are not your own. You were bought with the price, so glorify God in your body. So it's like, basically he says, don't do this because of who you are, right?
Yeah.
And so we can apply that to any sin, right? Like, hey, don't do this because of who you are now.
Yeah.
And so it's very similar logic.
Yeah. And even Trey and we were talking the other day, and he pointed to First Peter, and Peter does something very similar. He points back, and he points forward, and he gives a promise. So it's like it's all over. I just never noticed these things.
Interesting to see if Jesus did that sometimes.
Oh, I'm sure he did, right?
I know he did with the Pharisees. Are you not the teacher of Israel? Supposed to know the law of Moses?
You guys have any other thoughts on these, or anything else you want to share? I was thinking we could just take a moment to set goals, but specifically reflect. Is there any specific motivation that we wrote down? Maybe there's another one in your head that you're thinking about that maybe would be helpful for you to cling to this coming week, or maybe even to encourage another brother or sister in the church with.